Welcome back to the Crimson Chat, your go-to show for inspiring stories and meaningful conversations from the heart of the University of Kansas. I'm your host, Jaden Hill, and today's episode is all about impact, specifically how one day can make a lasting difference in the lives of graduate students and across KU. We're joined today by Dr. Rick G. Steele, Vice Provost for Graduate and Postdoctoral Affairs. We'll also be talking about One Day, One KU, KU's annual day of giving, and how your support can help graduate students overcome unexpected challenges and continue their education. Dr. Steele, welcome to the Crimson Chat. We're so excited to have you today.
Thank you, Jaden. It's a pleasure to be here.
First, can we talk about what is your job exactly, and how do you get involved with the graduate students in this fun? Give us a little background information.
Absolutely. So I run the Office of Graduate and Postdoctoral Affairs, and our primary mission is to ensure that all things graduate and all things postdoc runs like it should. So we work on policy, we work on scholarships and fellowships, awards, professional development, and making sure that programs align with expectations.
Absolutely, and I feel like many people, when they think of a university, think of undergraduates, that usual 4 to 5 year experience. What does it mean to be a graduate student or a doctoral student? How is that different, and how are they involved in KU?
You know, they are very involved, but it's a very different kind of experience. So many people, when they think of college, they think of the athletics, they think about the courses. Really, for graduate students, it's about research often, about developing professional skills, oftentimes teaching. So many of your viewers will have had graduate teaching assistants and such. It's a lot about time management.
And what originally drew you to working with graduate students and doctoral students?
Sure. Well, I was a graduate student many, many years ago. I love the experience. I love being on campus, and I love that in-depth study and in-depth preparation that the graduate students get. What drew me to this specific job was the ability to make a difference really across campus. So I've had experience in specific graduate programs, but this was something a little more broad.
It's really admirable to see that you were like, I want to extend this, my reach to all of those students. And you mentioned the time management aspect of, graduate students and postdoctoral work. What are some common issues that many of these students might face due to them balancing research and teaching and classes and all of these other things?
I think the first thing to recognize is that all of us have time management issues, right? No matter what we're doing, whether you're a first-year student or a last-year doctoral student. I think the difference for graduate students is they're balancing so many things with kind of a level of intensity. So they may be teaching their own class, but they're also taking their own class. They're helping mentor undergraduate students while they're getting mentored on their own research or professional development, and all of that while trying to balance life.
Can you talk about how KU is a Tier 1 research institution and how that kind of plays an effect into the type of research and work that is expected from these students?
Absolutely. So we are a Research 1 institution, and really we are able to draw graduate students from across the world to our campus to do that kind of research and to engage in those professional activities. It really changes and enhances the classroom experience and the lab experience and the other kind of mentoring experiences that students of all types can expect to get.
Many people do not realize how quickly, financial issues can come up or some unexpected, cost that you weren't imagining. How does that disproportionately affect those graduate students?
I think about it as a momentum kind of an issue, right? So if you imagine you're riding a skateboard, right, and there's a little crack in the sidewalk, you're moving quickly enough that you're just going to skip right over that crack. Well, sometimes the cracks get bigger, right, and it takes more momentum. And so when unexpected things come up, whether that's an illness or car breaks down or housing situations or those kinds of things, it can really impact what you were going to do this week or this month, all the opportunities.
So that takes me to the Graduate Student Emergency Fund. Can you talk about how that came to be and really who it serves and why?
Absolutely. It's a really kind of a fun story. My previous supervisor, Michael Roberts, was Dean of Graduate Studies here several years ago. And when he started in that role, he created this fund recognizing that it really does take one injury, one illness, one car breakdown, one situation with your housing that can really set a student back, a graduate student back from their studies, from their research, from their clinical work, from their teaching, all of the things. And so he set that up several years ago as a way of helping to overcome those incidents.
It's really cool to see how the administration had come to support the students, especially with this fund. Do you have any anecdotal stories about how this fund has made a difference?
You know, one of the things that's kind of unique about this particular fund is we can't tell specific stories. We have people who have had dental issues, medical issues, children's medical issues. We've helped people with really kind of unfortunate housing situations where there was a loss of housing, and if the emergency funds hadn't been there, they may have had to leave KU. There's really a lot of really beautiful stories that you hear about when you see where the funds actually go.
It's amazing to hear, and I also want to connect this to One Day 1KU. Can you talk about this event in particular and how it's working in concert with this emergency fund?
Absolutely. So One Day 1KU is the university's one day of giving where it brings all Jayhawks together: students, faculty, staff, alumni, friends, relatives, anyone that you want to refer to us would be happy to hear from, around some specific goals. So there's a number of different initiatives that different schools, different offices, different programs put forward to try to help students and to make a difference in those lives.
And when someone donates to the emergency fund, how does that process exactly work?
It's really kind of an interesting process. There is such a thing on campus called the Emergency Aid Network. And so there's a number of emergency funds in some of the professional schools, in the college, in our office, and we work as a team to make sure that the graduate student who needs the funds gets the funds. And so sometimes we piece together funds from our account and maybe the School of Education or the School of Architecture and Design to make sure that all of those students' needs are met to the best ability.
Can you speak to the viewer who's thinking about contributing, maybe even in a small way, how important each gift really is to this fund?
Absolutely. Certainly, gifts of any size are important. What I would add is not just monetary gifts. One of the things that's really important is people knowing about them. So if you're not in a situation to make a donation right now, maybe you know someone who is. Maybe you have an aunt or an uncle or a grandparent or a parent or a sibling or a friend or a boss, and you can say, hey, I have a GTA, a graduate teaching assistant, and I care about them. In case they had an emergency, would you be interested? So there's the monetary gifts that are so critical, but then there's also just word of mouth so that people know about what they could be supporting.
It's cool to see how this fund can really be a lifeline to a lot of students. And how do these students actually apply to receive the funds?
Absolutely. So there's two ways. There is just help.ku.edu, and that can get them to the Emergency Aid Network. The other is through our website at graduate.ku.edu, and there's a place on there that you can fill out a form to identify a specific need, and then we will work with the Emergency Aid Network to make sure that those funds are addressed.
Can you specifically talk about how supporting these students isn't just supporting that individual, but supporting really the KU community at large?
It really is. It affects so many different areas, whether teaching and research and service. Some of our graduate students work in mental health clinics or in health clinics. Keeping those students engaged and making progress is good for the communities that they serve, whether those are children in the child and adolescent clinic on campus, or whether it's the research that faculty are doing that is so critical to not just the graduate student's career, but to undergraduate careers and just to the advancement of science.
And looking ahead, is there anything in particular that you really hope for the future of graduate and postdoctoral support at KU?
You know, this is a hugely important endeavor that we raise money to keep students making progress. You know, the other areas that are important are student travel. Most of our graduate students must go and travel and present their research at conferences, and that's expensive. We all know how expensive that is. I think scholarships are always very important, as well as opportunities for awards.
If there is one thing you would like viewers to take away from this interview about supporting One Day 1KU as a whole, what would that be?
Share the information. Whether you can give or you can't give, it's really less important to me than finding one of our announcements on LinkedIn or Instagram and forwarding that to your networks. If we had everyone forwarding the information about this and everyone that they forwarded it to just gave $1 or $2, we would more than meet our goal for next year.
Is there anything else that you feel like we should talk about before we end this conversation, specifically about either your role or the emergency fund?
You know, I think one of the important things to remember is just thinking about graduate students and about their special situation as both the mentors and the mentees, as the teachers and the students, and bringing awareness to the role that our graduate students and our postdocs play on campus is hugely important.
Well, Dr. Steele, thank you so much for joining us today and sharing your work and how it's important for not only those students but the KU community. And to our listeners, if you would like to help graduate students stay on track during life's unexpected challenges, consider making a gift during One Day 1KU. Your support can truly change a student's future. Thank you for tuning in to the Crimson Chat. We'll see you next time.